the sound of steel shattering against bronze, the smell of blood mingling with the desert dust, the stifled cry of a soldier who knows he won't see the dawn. There are moments in history where the fate of millions was decided in a single day, on a single battlefield, in a single decision made by a man who knew he was gambling with the future of civilization. Today you will discover the 10 battles that not only changed empires, but redefined what it means to be human. Because this isn't a history lesson. This is a journey to the exact moment where everything could have been different, where gods seemed to walk among mortals, and where some men discovered that immortality isn't earned by living forever, but by dying for something greater than themselves. Part 1. When empires bleed. There is a moment that all empires fear. At that instant when they discover they are not eternal. Rome and Persia, the two colossi of the ancient world, believed in their invincibility. They were about to learn the bloodiest lesson in history. Battle of the Teutoburg Forest. The year is 9 AD. You are a Roman legionary marching through a dense forest in Germania. You have conquered Gaul, you have subdued Hispania, you feel invincible. At your side marches Arminius, a Germanic warrior raised in Rome, trained in Roman tactics, who speaks Latin better than some of your comrades. He is your ally, he is your brother in arms, or so you think. What you don't know is that every step you take brings you closer to the perfect trap. Arminius didn't forget who he truly was. He didn't forget that Rome destroyed his tribe, enslaved his people. He waited. He learned. Then he observed every weakness of the most perfect military system ever created, and when he had the chance, he took it. The Teutoburg Forest wasn't a battlefield. It was a slaughterhouse designed by someone who knew exactly how the enemy thought. Narrow paths hampered Roman formations. Swamps trapped heavily armored soldiers. For 3 days, arrows rained down from the trees. The Germanic warriors appeared, attacked, and vanished like ghosts. Roman discipline, that machine that had conquered the known world, crumbled under the weight of panic. 3 entire legions annihilated, 20,000 men. The imperial eagles captured and impaled as trophies. When the news reached Rome, Emperor Augustus banged his head against the walls, shouting, "Varus, give me back my legions!" Teutoburg Forest established the natural boundary of the Roman Empire. Our Germania would never be conquered. The Rhine became a border for centuries. And all because one man understood that the best weapon against an empire is not brute force, but knowing its secrets and using them against it. Marathon battle. The year is 490 BC. 25,000 Persians have just landed on the plain of Marathon. Expert archers, light cavalry, warriors who have conquered from Egypt to Babylon. Facing them are 10,000 Athenians and 1,000 allies from Plataea. Citizens, not professional soldiers. Men who left their workshops, their fields, their families, knowing that if they lost, Athens would be razed and the fledgling democracy would die before it could take its first full breath. General Miltiades faces an impossible decision. If he waits, the Persians will land more troops. If he attacks, his men will have to run more than a mile under a hail of Persian arrows, something no army has ever attempted. The weight of the bronze armor, the shield, the spear, everything conspires against that idea. But Miltiades sees something. The Persian cavalry is not on the field. There is a window of opportunity. He gives the order. The hoplites begin to run. It is not an orderly march, it is a desperate charge. Persian arrows rain down like a deadly shower, but the Greeks do not stop. They stumble, they fall, they get up, they keep running. The sound of 10,000 men running in bronze armor shakes the earth. The Persians do not understand what they are seeing. When the Greeks crash into the Persian lines, it is like an iron wall slamming into flesh and blood. Miltiades had reinforced the flanks, deliberately weakening the center. The Greek center falls back, absorbing the Persian onslaught. The Greek flanks envelop them. It is a deadly pincer movement. The Persians break ranks, fleeing to their ships. 6,400 Persians lie sprawled on the plain. The Greeks lose 192 men whose names were carved in stone for eternity. But the battle does not end there. The Persians attempt to outflank Athens by sea and attack it while it is undefended. The Greeks, exhausted and bloodied, run the 42 kilometers back to their city. They arrive just in time. The Persians saw the defended walls and retreated. From that desperate dash was born the legend of Pheidippides and the modern marathon. Marathon demonstrated something revolutionary to the world, that freedom could defeat despotism. That citizens fighting for their homeland were more dangerous than professional soldiers fighting for a distant empire. It was the first major warning to Persia that Greece would not be easy to conquer. It was the birth of the myth of the West. Battle of Cannae. The year is 216 BC. Hannibal Barca, the Carthaginian military genius who crossed the Alps with war elephants, has been terrorizing Italy for 2 years. He has defeated Rome time and again, but Rome refuses to surrender. So Rome assembles the largest army in its history, 86,000 soldiers. It is a human mass that makes the earth tremble as it marches. The Roman consuls are confident. With those numbers, with that legendary discipline, Hannibal doesn't stand a chance. Hannibal has fewer than 50,000 men. But Hannibal doesn't need more men. He needs Rome to make a mistake. And Rome does. On the plain of Cannae, Hannibal deploys his troops in an unusual formation. His center is forward, forming a convex crescent. The Romans see this as weakness. They think that if they push the center forward, the entire Carthaginian army will collapse. This is exactly what Hannibal wants them to think. The battle begins. The Romans advance in their characteristic compact formation, pushing toward the Carthaginian center, and Hannibal's center falls back, slowly in a controlled manner, like a door opening. The Romans interpret this as imminent victory and push harder. They pack in further, concentrating on that center that seems about to break. Then Hannibal gives the signal. The Carthaginian cavalry, which has been holding back the Roman cavalry on the flanks, breaks through the enemy lines and gallops behind the Roman army. At the same time, the Carthaginian infantry on the flanks turns 90 degrees inward. The Romans, who thought they were winning, realize they are completely surrounded. Hannibal's center stops retreating and hardens. Now the Romans are trapped in a living box of steel and death. What follows is a massacre. 80,000 soldiers press so tightly together they can barely raise their weapons. The cavalry attacks from the rear. The infantry pressed forward from the flanks. The Romans died of suffocation before they died of wounds. By the end of the day, 50,000 Romans were dead. 16,000 were captured. Only 14,000 escaped. Hannibal lost 6,000 men. Cannae became the paradigm of the perfect flanking maneuver. 2,000 years later, it is still studied in military academies around the world, not for the number of dead, but for its tactical perfection. For demonstrating that in war, strategic genius can multiply the strength of a smaller army until it becomes invincible. Rome never forgot that lesson, and it never again faced Hannibal in open battle with such arrogance. Empires fell. The invincible bled. But this is just the beginning. If you want to see how history's brightest minds redefined warfare itself, like this now, and stay until the end. Part 2. Geniuses who redefined war. What do you do when all the odds are stacked against you? Great generals turn despair into victory. These 4 men forever changed how we understand warfare. Battle of Gaugamela. The year is 331 BC. Alexander the Great, 29 years old, faces 200,000 Persians with only 47,000 men, outnumbered 4-1. Darius has leveled the ground for his chariots with rotating blades. He has elephants brought from India. Alexander has trained his men for this. When the chariots charge, the soldiers clear paths. The chariots pass through without causing damage. Archers and spearmen destroy them from the flanks. Darius's weapon is neutralized in minutes. Alexander attacks the right flank. Darius sends in troops. The Persian lines spread. Then Alexander sees a gap of 100 meters. He charges directly toward Darius with his cavalry. The sight of the young king galloping with his lance sows panic. Darius flees in his chariot. The army collapses. Babylon opens its gates. Susa falls. Persepolis is sacked. Alexander becomes ruler of an empire stretching from Greece to India. All because he saw an opening that lasted seconds and had the audacity to seize it without hesitation. Battle of Zama, 202 BC. Scipio must defeat Hannibal on his own ground, the undefeated master against the apprentice. Scipio studied every battle of Hannibal's. He learned from Cannae. When Hannibal deploys 80 elephants, Scipio organizes his troops, leaving open corridors. The elephants charge and find gaps. Roman soldiers guide them with trumpets. Hannibal's weapon neutralized. Infantry against infantry for hours. The difference? The Numidian cavalry pursues the Carthaginian cavalry and returns, attacking the rear. Hannibal, the master of the flanking maneuver, is flanked by his own tactics. Zama ends the Second Punic War. Rome becomes the Mediterranean superpower. All because an apprentice used the master's lessons against him. Battle of Alesia, 52 BC. Vercingetorix takes refuge in Alesia with 80,000 warriors. Caesar knows a rescue army of 200,000 is coming. He builds 2 rings of fortifications, an inner one surrounding Alesia, an outer one facing outwards. Trenches, stakes, towers, traps. When the rescue arrives, Caesar is trapped. 80,000 Gauls inside want to get out. 200,000 outside want to get in. For days, 60,000 Romans fight in both directions. Caesar rides from one critical point to another. Finally, hunger wins. Vercingetorix surrenders. Alesia secures Gaul and cements Caesar's status as a genius. It gives him the army he will use to conquer Rome itself. Battle of Actius, 31 BC. The future of Rome is decided in Greek waters. Octavian against Mark Antony and Cleopatra. Antony has more ships, bigger ships. Octavian has Agrippa, the best admiral. Agrippa uses agile ships that circle and attack from unexpected angles. The decisive factor is psychological. Cleopatra orders her fleet to retreat. Antony, seeing her sail away, abandons his fleet in the heat of battle and sails after her. When a commander abandons his men, the result is inevitable. Antony and Cleopatra commit suicide a year later. Egypt becomes a Roman province. Octavian receives the title of Augustus. The Republic dies. The Roman Empire is born. Actium marks where the Mediterranean becomes a Roman lake, where the Pax Romana begins. Strategy changed empires, but there's something more powerful than victory. If you want to discover the battles where defeat became eternal legend, and subscribe now because what's coming is epic. Part 3. Sacrifice, Honor, and Eternal Legend. There are battles that transcend victory. They become myths. Where losing meant gaining immortality. Battle of Thermopylae. The year is 480 BC. A defile so narrow that 2 chariots can barely pass. Xerxes marches with a human ocean, 250,000 men. Leonidas arrives with 300 Spartans. When the Persian emissaries demand weapons, Leonidas replies, "Molon Labe, come and take them." For 3 days, the Persians crash against the Spartan wall. The Spartans use the narrowness to neutralize their numbers. Xerxes sends in his immortals. They retreat, bleeding. Then Ephialtes, a traitor, reveals a secret path that bypasses the pass. Leonidas orders the allies to withdraw. The 300 remain. 700 Thespians and 400 Thebans share the glory. On the last day, they no longer defend a position. They kill as many Persians as possible. They fight with spears until they break, with swords until they splinter, with their bare hands. Finally, they are riddled with arrows. Militarily, it was a defeat. Strategically, it was a victory. It gave Greece time to regroup. A year later, at Plataea and Salamis, Persia would be defeated. The epitaph sums it all up. Traveler, go to Sparta and tell them that here we lie, obedient to their laws. Thermopylae became the founding myth of the West, that a few free men are worth more than thousands of slaves. That freedom is worth more than life. Battle of Plataea. A year later, the Persians occupied Athens. They burned the Acropolis. At Plataea, the Greek city-states assembled 100,000 men, polis that hated each other, united by fear. Pausanias faced Mardonius. The Spartans held the center. The Athenians flanked. Then Mardonius fell. A spear found its mark. When an army loses its commander, morale collapses. Plataea was the ultimate victory, the end of the Persian dream in Greece. Greece was free for its democracy, philosophy, and theater. Everything we call Western civilization was born after Plataea. Battle of the Hydaspes, 326 BC. Alexander has marched farther than anyone else. His men are exhausted. King Porus awaits with 200 elephants. Alexander crosses the river during a night storm. The elephants advance like tanks. The Macedonians attack their legs, their drivers. Porus fights back, wounded multiple times. When he is captured, Alexander asks, "How do you want me to treat you?" Porus replies, "Like a king." Alexander restores his kingdom to him. Hydaspes marks the eastern boundary. His men refuse to go any further. Hydaspes stands as an example that war can end with mutual respect. These battles weren't just clashes of steel and flesh. They were the moments when humanity decided which values mattered enough to die for. Freedom over slavery, strategy over brute force, honor over survival. Some of these men died, others conquered empires, but they all understood something we've forgotten, that there are more important things than living. That true power doesn't come from how many soldiers you have, but from how much you're willing to sacrifice for your principles. Tell me, which of these battles do you think most profoundly changed the destiny of civilization? Which deserves to be remembered as the most immortal? If this journey through blood and glory resonated with you, like and subscribe, because there are more legends waiting to be told.